Hey everyone, it's Jenny from the Wow Creative team. I hope you're all having a wonderful day. Today I'm going to be showing you how I created these two cards. They feature Wow's Fab Foils. These are foils that can be activated with heat or pressure, used with a medium to add to your projects, and I'm going to be adding foil accents today using layering stencils and silhouette stencils. I'm first off going to be using this coloured cardstock. It's from Concord and Ninth. It comes in this multi-pack and I've grabbed the grapefruit cardstock. So I'm going to be using coloured cardstock on both my cards today just for something a little bit different. My first card is going to be a slimline shaker card. So I'm using this Argyle layering stencil from Pink Fresh Studio. And I'm going to be first off ink blending the first layer on top of this grapefruit cardstock using some passion fruit ink for a more tone-on-tone look. I've adhered the stencil just with a piece of washi tape so it doesn't shift, and then I've grabbed my Altenew blender tool, which is great for wide areas or larger stencils like this for a nice even look, and I've blended it all over the background. Now I did cut my cardstock slightly larger than the stencil, just makes it easier for trimming out later on. And then I'm going to take the second layer of the stencil, line it up. It's really easy to see through these stencils from Pink Fresh Studio, so you can see to the pattern below. And I'm going to use this Deco Foil Transfer Gel Duo. If you had the earlier Thermoweb gel, which worked when you applied heat running it through your laminator or your Mink machine, well, this one you can also add pressure without the need for any heat, and it will adhere your foil onto your project. I'm smoothing it over with a palette knife all over that stencil, and I do go and rinse it off before I then come back to my project. And then when I peel it off, you'll see that pretty Argyle pattern below. What you want to do before you add your foil is set it aside to dry. When it's clear, you'll know it's dry. It will go completely transparent and shiny, and that's when you're ready to foil. So while that's drying, I'm going to stamp the rest of my shaker card. And I am using this Be Courageous stamp. This is another slimline stamp from Pink Fresh Studio. And I'm going to stamp that outline image using my Memory Misty. These stamps do just about fit on the smaller Misties. You can use them on the outside of the Misty too if you're clever, just to stamp down these larger slimline stamps. And I'm stamping it down onto some neenah Solar White cardstock, cut just a little bit larger than the stamp itself. I'm using some Obsidian pigment ink from Altenew. And then I'm going to die cut out the center using the coordinated Be Courageous die before I do any ink blending. Now these stamps are a little longer than the standard plates on a typical die cutting machine, so you have to run them through twice. It's really simple to do. Just run it through almost all the way through, flip it around and then run it through again. And you'll see that you get this gorgeous shaker window, or what's going to be a shaker window, in the middle. Now these stencils are layering stencils designed to coordinate perfectly with these slimline stamps. And for the first two layers I'm going to be doing ink blending. I'm going to be using Meadow ink from Pink Fresh, and then for my second layer I'm going to be using Marigold ink. These are sort of a nice green colour and then a kind of yellow, deep yellow colour. And I'm just holding the stencils with my hand so it doesn't shift. I didn't think that the amount of blending here required me to washi tape it down. And then for my third layer, what I'm going to be doing is foiling. So I'm going to add foil accents using that third stencil layer instead of ink blending. And in doing that, I've got these beautiful kind of foiled accents in amongst my ink blending. Again, I'm going to be using the Deco Foil Duo, and I'm taking that third layer of stencil, lining it up. You can see that image through the stencil, and then just adding that duo paste all over and setting it aside to dry. Now here's what it'll look like when it's ready to foil. You can see it has faded out that ink below, but it doesn't matter because we're going to be foiling. And I'm using bright copper Fab Foil from Wow. And I thought it'd be a good chance to give you a demo of the quick trimmer from Spellbinders. It's a self-healing mat, a plastic guide, and then two blades, one which cuts foil and one which cuts cardstock. So I'll show you the cardstock a little bit later on in this video. And it just perfectly cuts a straight line through your foil. You can cut the strips as thin as you'd like. And then I'm going to run this through my die cutting machine. I'm running it through twice because it is a longer stencil. And then I'm just going to peel it back, and you will see that that pressure applied to the duo gel will just adhere that bright copper fab foil, and you get this gorgeous coppery, passion fruity, grapefruity background. And this is going to be the background for the shaker card. That shaker window that we created is going to pop over the top of it. And I decided to trim this out completely. I didn't leave a border around the outside. And I'm going to do the same again. I've trimmed down my copper foil again, and I'm going to overlay it onto that now dried duo paste, and then I'm going to run it through my die cutting machine and peel it back, and you will see that some of those flowers where we added that duo have picked up the foil, and you've got these really pretty coppery flowers in amongst the yellow flowers and the green leaves. I did get a little bit of foiling where I didn't want it, and I just used a mono sander razor to remove it, and you couldn't even tell it was there. I'm then going to trim it out, leaving a very thin white border. Now to create my shaker, I'm going to use some acetate. I'm using this Duralar 003 microns thick, and then I'm going to trim it to size and adhere it using my dry adhesive, and then peel back that backing paper. And then I'm using a double layer of 3M foam tape here because it is quite thin. But I like this foam tape because you can easily bend it around this crazy window that we're creating. You simply trim long strips of the 3M foam tape, remove both sides of the adhesive, and it will let you wind it around the window. It did take me a little time, so I cut that out of the video, but you'll see it on the left hand side there. And then for my sequins, I wanted something quite neutral, so I've got this sequins like sparkling clear confetti, and I'm just going to put it on that backing cardstock, spread it out, and then place my window over the top. That way I definitely get all of them inside those foam strips, and then I can shake it, make sure nothing falls out. And then that's all that's left is to mount it onto a £110 white note card that I've created to fit the shaker. And then for my sentiment, I'm using that Be Courageous stamp set again. I'm going to stamp my sentiment in Wow Embossing ink onto black cardstock, and then heat emboss it in opaque bright white super fine. And then I mentioned it earlier, this quick trimmer from Spellbinders also does paper and cardstock. It's got another blade. You can line up your strip, pull down that blade, and you get this nice perfectly cut strip, and then you can use it both ways. Helps to line it up with those guides on that map below. And then you've got a perfectly cut out sentiment. I just popped it up on a little bit of foam tape in the centre. And that finishes my first card. Now for my second card, I'm going to use the Oceanside colour cardstock from Concord 9th. And I'm using this In Bloom stamp set. So I'm going to emboss this onto an A2 size panel of the Oceanside cardstock. And I'm embossing it in opaque bright white again. I thought that would look really pretty, really sharp contrast with that deep blue colour. Inking it up in Wow Embossing ink. I have treated the cardstock with a powder tool to make sure I don't get an embossing powder sticking where I don't want it. And then I'm catching all of my excess in a coffee filter. And it does actually require quite a lot of embossing powder, this stamp. It's really big. I'm going to heat it up with my Wow heat tool until all of the embossing powder is smooth and melted. Now this stamp set comes with coordinating set of stencils. There's multiple different types in it. This one I thought would be great for using with the duo paste and Fab Foil. It's got stripes and then a silhouette, so you lay that silhouette over your stamped image and it adds stripes to the background. So you could do ink blending, but it basically masks off the image. I'm going to use that duo paste and gel, and so that I can add foil in around my heat embossed flower. So once again, I'm going to set it to one side to dry, and then while that's drying, I'm going to create the rest of my card sentiment. So I've grabbed a panel of Neenah Solar White 80-pound cardstock here, and I'm going to stamp this Just Wanted to Say, which is a stamp set from Concord and 9th in coordinating Oceanside ink, also from Concord and 9th. And my ink pad's getting a little dry. I've used these tiny little ink pads so many times they've almost run out of ink. And then I'm going to stamp the next sentiment, also from the same set, inside the card. So this is an A2 size note card. It's actually scored here so that the inside is facing up. So I'm stamping on the inside of the card here. So it will say, just wanted to say, you're my favourite. And now I can just fold that back and that's the inside of the card. And just fold it back down again. So I set that to one side. I grab my panel now that the duo has dried. And I'm going to use Teal foil, which I've again trimmed down. It's a little more difficult to make sure that I get this right because the foil is not quite as wide as the A2 size cardstock, so you apply it sideways. But it doesn't matter because when you foil it, you can't see that join. So I'm just going to rub it down slightly with my fingers to make sure it sticks, and then trim off the excess and roll it through my die cutting machine again. I'm just rolling them through between two plates. I haven't added any spacers or mats or anything like that. It's just between two plates. And then I'm going to peel off that teal fab foil. And there's one piece that didn't quite dry. So this is what happens if you foil too soon and it's not dry enough. It'll pull up some of that duo. It didn't quite foil, it's still there though, so you can come back in with some of your excess foil and just add that pressure with your finger and reapply that foil. And if you're lucky, it's just enough to make sure that it covers up any boo-boos. Unfortunately, because it was still slightly wet, I got like a fingerprint impression, but I'm going to cover it up later on with a sequin, so it's all fine. I'm going to pop up the I just wanted to say that I've trimmed out with some foam squares up in that top corner, and then adhere it to the note card I created that had the sentiment inside. And then to finish, I'm coming in with some more of those clear sequins and just place them in a few areas, including where I messed up at the top, but that's okay. And that finishes my second card. Doesn't it look shiny? I hope you've enjoyed this video. Be sure to check out the others from the rest of the creative team on the WOW channel. Thanks, have a lovely day. Bye.